Ó, pra quem não entendeu, eu queria ver com vocês tem um tempo esses documentários da Real Football Factories. Essa é uma série que a ESPN transmitiu. Não sei se foi feita pela ESPN, acho que não foi, inclusive. Mas a ESPN teve que transmitir tempos atrás. Que foi feita sobre os hooligans, tá ligado? Ou o lado das torcidas organizadas ao redor do mundo, né? Das rivalidades e tal. E tem vários países sendo sede dessa série, né? Tipo assim, tem Balcãs, tem Rio de Janeiro, tem Rio Grande do Sul, tem Argentina, tem Itália. Enfim, tem muito tempo que eu queria ver com vocês e vou ver agora. Mas é bem bom, mano. É bem bom. Esse aqui, o dos Balcãs, pra mim, é o mais extremo que eu já vi desse documentário, tá ligado? Mas eu não lembro de tudo, porque foi muito tempo atrás que eu vi. Mas é o maior extremo que tem.
Chegamos a um dos pontos...
Pra deixar claro, tá? É bem pesado, assim. É pra ver pensando bem no que tu tá assistindo, tá ligado? Então assistam, mas sempre com a consciência, tá ligado? No lugar.
Os mais explosivos do planeta. Sérvia e Croácia. Duas ex-repúblicas iugoslavas que se enfrentaram na Guerra dos Balcãs. Batalhas que tiveram a participação de grupos de torcedores organizados. Grupos que chegaram, inclusive, a ser comandados por personagens como o criminoso de guerra Arkan, morto em 2000 e ligado ao Estrela Vermelha da antiga Iugoslávia.
I'm Danny Dyer, and this is the Real Football Factories International.
É doideira esse documentário, moleque. Tá alto ou tá baixo?
Then I travelled the UK and met the real football firms. Now, I'm going international. 9 countries in 2 months. Around the hooligan world in 60 days. A whole new level of football violence. We'll be in riots. We'll get tear gassed, chased, and even shot at. It's going to be quite a trip.
Da cara de bloco antigo, é antigão.
This week I'm in 2 countries that used to be part of one. 2 countries with a proud footballing history, whose clubs have some of the most fanatical followers in world football.
Só deixa eu ver aqui de que ano é. Ó, ele é de 2006. Então temos aí quase... Caralho, mano, quase 20 anos. 2006, moleque. Cara, eu tô ficando velho pra caralho. O que é isso?
Football hooligans who went from fighting each other on the terraces to fighting one another on the front line in a bloody civil war. George Orwell once said, football's like war minus the shooting. This is the story of the football firms of Croatia and Serbia. I'm going to the former Yugoslavia, to these 2 countries to meet some of the most notorious firms in world football.
É doideira esse lugar, moleque. O bagulho é ódio total, tá ligado, Aline? Não é sentimento, é ódio. O cara tem ódio. É ódio pra extravasar.
Firms who only 15 years ago fought for their countries, Croatia and Serbia, in the civil war that broke up Yugoslavia. It was one of the bloodiest Europe had ever witnessed, and the scars are still here to see.
Tipo assim, trazendo pro nosso paralelo, é como se, sei lá, Corinthians e Palmeiras, ou Vasco e Flamengo, ou Inter e Grêmio lutassem por território numa guerra civil, tá ligado? E, porra, pessoas morressem nessa guerra civil por conta de, tá ligado? Defender o seu próprio lugar e ainda assim, depois disso, disputarem campeonatos que seu time estão disputando, tá ligado? É muito doido, tá ligado? É muito doido, mano. É muito doido.
But what's happening with the firms today? I want to find out who they're fighting against now and what they're fighting for.
I like when they beat each other. I like when they beat police. I think that's life. That's football.
It's the same feeling like a sex with 2 girls.
É muito doido, mano. Os caras são doentes.
The city shared by the heroes of Red Star and the grave diggers of Partizan.
Estrela Vermelha e Partizan, hein?
In Croatia, I'm going to the capital city Zagreb to meet the bad blue boys of Dinamo Zagreb.
Golden room to fight for that club.
I'll be at their stadium, the scene of a football riot that for many was the real start
Olha
of the
isso,
civil
moleque.
war in former Yugoslavia. I'm starting my journey in Croatia, in the city of Split, because this is home to the oldest organised firm in Europe. Split is Croatia's second largest city. It's a hidden gem on the Adriatic coast.
Beautiful.
It seemed like the last place to be looking for international football hooligans. I was confused. I thought I'd walked into the wrong series. I felt like I was working on a holiday show.
It seems very calm, nice people, a lot of old people.
Vocês têm vontade de conhecer esses lugares aí? Ou não? Tipo assim, Croácia, Sérvia,
Zero.
Rússia, Ucrânia. Você tem, tipo assim, vontade de conhecer o lugar, conhecer a história e tal? Ou zero? Só pela TV?
A lot of ladies, a lot of young ladies. I'm not getting no element of violence. I know it's here and I know it's rife. You wouldn't think it to walk around the city.
But don't be deceived by the picture postcard setting.
I'm here to see the dark side.
This is home to Hajduk Split and their infamous firm,
Hajduk
the
Split.
Torsida.
Almost every game there's fighting. A lot of fans from other clubs don't have the courage to come to Split. When we go to other towns, there's almost always problems.
A torcida,
22-year-old
né?
Yera is the latest generation of the Torsida.
Muito foda.
And
Eu
wherever
e
they
esse cara
go,
temos a mesma idade.
he's there.
If something happens, I'll be
Quantos anos ele tem?
22.
O cara
Eu e
entrando
ele.
em guerra.
Eu e ele temos a mesma idade.
22-year-old Yera is
Cara,
the
tem
latest
22 anos
generation of
nunca,
the
Alan. Olha a
Torsida.
cara
Nunca.
dele.
Fudido de
Esse cara
tanta
é
And
briga.
wherever they go, he's there.
If something happens, I'll be there. I won't run away. It's the same as going out on a Saturday night. You know, if someone attacks your mates, of course you're gonna jump in.
And it all kicked off over half a century ago.
Parece o
1950.
Sully.
And that's a proper firm. Established 1950.
The more I saw of the city, the more it became clear that Torsida is the heartbeat of Split.
Esse Hajduk Split joga que divisão aí.
is everywhere. I mean, it's just absolutely all over the game.
Campeonato europeu. Porra,
They've even got their name on the street lamps.
Not a lot of people
Primeiro-
know this about me, but I'm fluent in Croatian.
Terceiro lugar no Croatão.
So this says, if I had two lives, I'd give them both to you. That says to me passion, you know what I mean? That's a proper little motto, that is.
And that passion's going to be
Então, mano, é tipo assim, eu olho pra isso, eu tenho uma visão um pouco diferente, né? Eu acho que isso extrapola o limite da paixão, isso vira doença, tá ligado? Mas aí é uma opinião minha que as pessoas podem discordar ou não, que as pessoas têm uma relação com o seu clube do coração que é muito particular, né? Então, assim, tem gente que, porra, está disposta a deixar a sua vida ali pelo clube. Enfim, é uma relação um pouco mais doentia, assim, nesse sentido. Pode ser tratada como um amor, paixão incondicional, só que eu tenho um olhar diferente sobre essa situação, tá ligado? Tipo assim, eu não olho por exemplo, né? Eu vou deixar aqui só, antes da gente ver esse documentário, vou deixar aqui. Eu não olho pra isso aqui com um olhar, tá ligado? Romântico da coisa, tá ligado? Eu olho pra isso aqui com um olhar, assim, bem distante do que eu acredito que seja o normal e o real, tá ligado? Eu acho loucura, eu acho doentio, tá ligado? Eu acho ruim no fim das contas, entendeu? Só que é a minha opinião, tá ligado? Isso aqui pra mim é como se fosse, tipo assim, a gente tá se munindo de informações sobre como funciona aí muitas das coisas no mundo do futebol, ao mesmo tempo eu meio que discordo de quase tudo que é feito aqui, tá ligado? Eu olho com um olhar crítico pra coisa, só que pra gente, querendo ou não, ainda é informação, tá ligado? Você tá consumindo um conteúdo que você desconhece. Mas eu não admiro isso aqui não, tá ligado? Não admiro não. Oficial.
needed, because Split is gearing up for the biggest game of the season. Their big rivals, Dinamo Zagreb, are in town for the derby of Croatia.
We can make
some troubles in Split.
A match where fireworks are guaranteed. And in part 2, we'll be in the thick of it. I'm in Split in
Então assim, os
Croatia,
caras eles vão preparados pra
home of
morrer pro
Tulsida,
jogo. Isso é
the
muito
firm
doido.
of Hajduk Split. And I'm here for the big Croatian derby against their bitter rivals, Dinamo Zagreb. The Tulsida are a firm with a fair bit of previous. 1961, referee attacked after disallowing a Hajduk goal.
Caralho, mano.
1974, fought the Yugoslav army evacuated from the stadium. 1988, banned from
Você leu, né, Aline? O exército foi evacuado do estádio. Tipo assim, a torcida botou o exército pra fora do estádio.
European competition for 3 years after rioting in Marseille. 1990,
Olha isso aí, mano.
pitch invasion and attempt to attack partisan Belgrade's players.
Cara, que loucura, viado.
And then there's the noughties and the cup final riots of 2000 and
Eles são muito
2001
doentes, cara.
against guess who? Dinamo Zagreb. And the latest incident occurred just 2 days before I arrived. Torcida members were among the 183 arrested in Zagreb for causing trouble for Croatia versus England. But it wasn't the English they were fighting. Yet again, they were fighting Dinamo Zagreb. A lot of them have been nicked. A lot of them fresh out of the shovel this morning. So, I don't know what I'm walking into. Maybe a bit ratty. I'm chuffed they're still going to speak to me, you know what I mean? I know none of them have slept. I know that the police don't treat them well here. You know what I mean? It's not like they're in a 5-star nick. Let's go and see what they've got to say. Just a few hours after he'd been released from the nick, Yera from the Torcida was going to give me the lowdown. How do the police treat you here?
Not very well.
No?
They treat us like second-grade citizens, and with the new laws coming in, they have authorities to limit our freedom of movement, and
Yeah.
they can nick us for almost anything. They beat the shit out of you if they catch you.
One of the biggest battles between the Torcida and the police happened at the cup final in Split in 2001. The Torcida broke out of their north end and spilt onto the running track.
They regard us as a bunch of hooligans. We behave as we were treated.
Then they launched a massive attack on the police.
That was probably the biggest battle that I've ever seen in my life.
But the police regrouped and forced the Torcida back into their stand.
Aí deu polícia, hein?
They wheeled out the water cannons to try and cool the situation down. But once the end was cleared, the Torcida headed into the city centre to continue the battle.
There was a mob of about 2,000 people fighting the police, and it went on for the entire afternoon.
The city and its police felt the force of the Torcida. And I thought the English firms didn't get on well with the old Bill. What does this mean?
All cops are bastards.
All cops are bastards. Quite simple. Unlike firms in England, the Torcida don't have to keep their nuts down. Their headquarters is bang in the middle of the town. This is what I love, yeah? You want to find the
Os caras são completamente
Torcida?
doentes. Completamente doentes, irmão. Completamente. Os caras são completamente.
But you can't just walk in off the street. This is their inner sanctum, and I was lucky enough to have an invite.
I'm loving the bar. Cool as fuck.
On the wall are hundreds of pictures of what are known as choreographies. The displays they organise with flags and flares. And there's the holiday snaps from their greatest away days.
This is probably the best away match that we ever had. It's us in Rome. There was 6,000 of us. We completely just invaded the city. We took over all their squares. We completely outvoiced them in the stadium. Yeah, the best moment of my life. It makes my hair stand up.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Moleque, eles são completamente
So
bitolados.
who
moleque,
can
é
take the
bizarro.
Torcida on? Who are the rivals for the crown of Croatia's toughest and proudest firm? It's the boys from the capital, the Bad Blue Boys, the firm of Dinamo Zagreb, and they're in town for the biggest game in the Croatian football calendar. Hajduk Split versus Dinamo Zagreb, one of the most explosive fixtures in the world.
Biggest rivals.
Vai rolar,
In
Bezinho.
this moment, Torcida Split, absolutely.
An army of 2,000 bad blue boys are heading to Split, and one of them is this man, Bogdan Urukalo.
Bogdan Urukalo.
We don't like them. We really don't like them. We can make some troubles in Split.
It's high noon in Split on match day, and the police are preparing for trouble. It's their job to keep the Torcida and the bad blue boys apart. But the two firms have other ideas.
Senhora.
All my crew is now at the center, preparing for the game, waiting for guests.
We are also prepared for any kind of troubles.
The boys looking for the guys from Zagreb.
We are not afraid of that
Moleque,
kind
esse
of
maluco tem
conflict.
cara de psicopata.
Is it going to go off like it did at the Cup final in
Alô,
2000?
todos no
One of the
vídeo
worst
tem.
incidents
Moleque, tipo assim, ele tá disposto a morrer na tua frente pelo Zagreb, tá ligado?
in the history of European football. The bad blue boys provoked the Torcida by throwing flares at normal Hajduk fans.
We burned 10-15 flares. We threw it on the ordinary people because we cannot reach the flare till Torcida. It's impossible, 200 meters, 150 meters. And then whole stadium became crazy, na na na. They were shouting and singing, "We will kill you, we will kill you."
Enraged, the Torcida went berserk and rushed round to the Dinamo end to try and break down the fence and get at the bad blue boys.
Policial ali, mano.
Chaos ensued
Fudido.
as the police fired tear gas at the attacking fans, and the showpiece game of the Croatian season was abandoned. It was shocking even by Croatian standards, as more than 100 people were injured and 98 arrested.
It was a good incident. I was satisfied.
Back at the latest derby of Croatia, and there's still 2 hours till kickoff, and the
Satisfeito é uma
tension's rising. Both firms are heading to the ground, and the police are out in force. As the bad blue boys arrive at their end, the police are wary of any last-minute attempts at an ambush by the Torcida. Inside the ground, the crowd were coming to the boil. The riot police stand by as the two groups exchange pleasantries. Throughout the game, various missiles are thrown towards the pitch. Firemen struggle to cope with the constant barrage of flares.
É, como é que joga jogo desse, viado?
And when a fire is
Cara botando
started in the
fogo.
Dinamo end and the
É.
police intervene,
Tem uma
the lads from
pressãozinha aqui
Zagreb
e ali,
dedicate
né?
a song to the other boys in blue.
Ou não joga também.
It's a
Ele é
totally
completamente
different world out here.
doentio, moleque.
You just can't imagine this being allowed to happen at a game in England. For this kind of behaviour, they'd have all been pinched and banned. And while all that was going on, a football match took place, which had 3 penalties, 8 bookings, a sending off, and ended 2-2. But by the usual standards of this match, it was a quiet one. Not much trouble. Just 30 Torcida and 9 bad blue boys arrested.
Apenas 39 presos pra um
Split
jogo
was certainly
tranquilo.
an eye-opener.
Jogo, uma quinta-feira
I couldn't
tranquila.
believe that this peaceful place was home to such a violent firm. By now, the bad blue boys were back home in Zagreb, a couple of 100 miles north of Split. It's the capital of Croatia, and it was where I was off to next.
And the difference between Split and Zagreb is like 2 different countries, to be honest with you. I mean, very cosmopolitan, hustle, bustle, you know, chaos. You know, Split's like Marbella, it's chilled out, nice. You know, this is like what you'd expect from a capital, I suppose.
It was another beautiful city, but I wasn't here to see the sights. I was here to meet the firm who were formed over 20 years ago in 1986. And since then, they've been causing quite a stir.
Golden rule is to support team 90 minutes. And if it's necessary, to fight for that club.
Here they
If
are
necessary,
fighting in Milan in 2000, where they went on a rampage against the Italian police.
Dinamo Zagreb is not a big European club. It's not a famous like some English or German clubs, but it's our glory.
This incident resulted in over 50 arrests and more than 50 injuries on both sides.
We are proud that we are supporters of Dinamo Zagreb.
So when it comes to letting the players know they're not happy, they don't bother moaning on a football phone-in. They believe actions speak louder than words.
A few times we smash their cars and we give them a few punches, you know, just for like a yellow card, you know.
So what happens when the players deserve a red card?
We decided to go.
Já pensou em dar um soco na cara de alguém do Flamengo para dar um cartão amarelo, Aline?
Segue o vídeo, Alan. Segue o vídeo.
Esse é o cartão amarelo dos caras, velho.
Segue o vídeo.
To the training.
Isso aqui vai pro canal de cortes, não posso falar.
And we took off their shirts, pants, everything.
Caralho.
Because they didn't deserve a shirt of Dinamo Zagreb.
Batem nos jogadores, os caras
And when
pelados.
Croatian president, Franjo Tuđman, who was also the club president, made the mistake of changing the name from Dinamo to Croatia Zagreb, they set fire to his director's box.
This has been burned in 1993, when some of our lads didn't know what to do because of the changing the name of the club. They burned all this. It was...
Eventually they got their way, and the name was changed back to Dinamo.
It was good.
Cara, ele é um psicopata, esse maluco.
Effectively, they run the club. And when I went to see them play, I got an idea of where their power comes from. Bogdan and the Bad Blue Boys agreed to allow me into their stand, but it had been touch and go for a while. Cameras weren't allowed onto the stand, so we could only film from pitch side. It was first versus third in the league, but what shocked me was how few people were there. The Bad Blue Boys had come out in force, but there was hardly anyone else in the stadium. And as for the Vartex fans,
Caralho.
they might as well have come in a cab.
Grande diferença de público, né? No croatão.
I realised why the Bad Blue Boys have so much power. Despite their antics, the club needs them, because if they weren't there supporting the team, nobody would be.
Eduardo da Silva.
I've never experienced nothing like it in the fact that constant singing. For 90 minutes, Bogdan made sure everyone on the stand was in full voice. Stands at the front with his back to the game, takes no notice, big old lumpy as and all. He's a naughty looking geezer.
Caralho, ele nem vê o
I
jogo.
don't know what it is, it's power though, it's passion. And then he puts it down, pipes at everyone. Make sure everyone's singing. Alright, takes everyone in. And if there ain't no one singing, he digs them out, he'll find them. Right mad mince pies, do you know what I mean? Like that, bosh. And the singing paid off,
Eduardo da Silva.
as Dinamo ended up 4-1 winners. The following morning, I met up with Bogdan, and we went back to the Maksimir Stadium. For him, this place is much more than just a football ground.
It's our second home, you know. Really, when I come to this stand, I forgot on everything which is happening in my life.
So how often would you say, Bogdan, that there's trouble in Croatia, trouble with the Bad Blue Boys? Is it
In the 90s, it was it was normal thing. Like you eat every day something. Every weekend we had problems. Every away match we had a fight with the police, with the other supporters.
Mostly police, though, yeah?
Yes, mostly police, because we had a war with the president of the Croatia and the whole government. We were enemy number one, and the whole police were chasing us.
So this was Croatia today. The Bad Blue Boys and the Torcida. Football firms fighting each other and the police, vying to be the #1 firm in the country. But the animosity here is nothing compared with the hatred that is felt for their neighbours in Serbia. Because that is about more than just football. They used to share a country, and then they went to war. And it was the firms who went to the front line.
I cannot tell you with the words what do I feel against them. They are our biggest enemies.
So stay with us, because later I'm going to find out about the football riot that was the start of a war.
Both sides had stockpiled rocks in the stadium beforehand so they could use them as weapons.
And I'll be travelling to Serbia and get to see the dark side of Belgrade. I was in Zagreb, Croatia, in a football ground which, although it may not look like much, witnessed an event in the history of football as significant as anything Wembley, the Nou Camp or the Maracanã has ever seen. In May 1990, the former Yugoslavia was on the brink of civil war.
Aí, Aline, comentário de maluco, ó. Sou português e torcedor do Vitória Esporte Clube. O Hajduk Split veio aqui jogar e os adeptos partiram, provavelmente, traduzindo do português para o português brasileiro, né? Quebraram a cidade toda. São todos animais que só querem porrada.
Caralho.
Bizarro, né?
Foda. Deve ser um terror jogar com esses caras, velho.
Vitória Esporte Clube, creio que seja Vitória de Guimarães. Eu acredito que seja.
Tem Vitória de Guimarães.
Tinha que ler com sotaque? Ah, mas eu não tenho sotaque.
Aí é de
Nationalism within the two largest republics, Croatia and Serbia, was at an all-time high. As this political powder keg was about to explode, one of the biggest club matches of the Yugoslav football season took place between Dinamo Zagreb and Red Star Belgrade.
Hooliganism generally had been rising through the late 70s and 80s, as it had across Europe.
Dinamo Zagreb e Red Star, que é a Estrela Vermelha, é Croácia contra a Sérvia, né? E aí já o bagulho fica mais tenso, né?
Yugoslavia had a nationalist element. Red Star were very much Serb nationalists. Dinamo Zagreb were the hardcore of the Croatian nationalists. The Red Star fans went up there with acid to burn down security fences. Both sides had stockpiled rocks in the stadium beforehand so they could use them as
com
weapons.
ácido no jogo, ácido.
It was prearranged. Everybody
Queimar
knew it was
metal.
going to go off.
And go off it did, as the Croats and the Serbs fought out a ferocious battle in an explosion of pent-up nationalism and hatred. This was not just Dinamo v Red Star, the Bad Blue Boys v Delia. This was Croatia v Serbia. Football photographer Toma Mihailovic has covered the game for over 50 years, and he was there that day.
Atmosphere was like we know that something is not good, but nobody was surprised because we were expecting sometimes to blow up.
During the game, the Red Star fans started tearing up the seats in this end. The Bad Blue Boys of Zagreb, who were in this end here, tried to break down the fences to get to the Red Star.
They beat back the police, who, being mostly Serbs, came in for special attention from the Bad Blue Boys.
And it wasn't only fans who got involved. When a policeman attacked a Dynamo fan line on the ground, Dynamo's Croatian captain, Boban, decided to exact revenge.
Caralho, filho, foi pra dentro do policial.
Boban's kick was a symbolic moment. It was the beginning of the end for Yugoslavia.
For me, it was a sad day. It was a terrible day, and I was feeling that I'm losing something. I have to forget all friends, all the clubs, and everybody, you know. And I'm feeling that is something we came to the end. And I was sorry about that.
And Tomo was right. As a year later, it wasn't punches and kicks that were being exchanged. It was gunfire and grenades, as Croatia and Serbia went to war. And the hooligans swapped their firms for their armies and signed up.
É como se rolasse um jogo entre um time ucraniano e um time russo hoje, né? Mal comparando. Uma comparação esdrúxula. É como se entrasse em campo aí uma rivalidade de um russo e Ucrânia agora em campo. Então as seleções entrando em campo com as torcidas, tá ligado? Dividindo o estádio meio a meio.
The civil war raged for 4 years, with more than 15,000 people killed. And by the end, Croatia and Serbia were two separate countries. It was one of the most incredible stories I'd ever heard. Football hooliganism as a political event. One of the biggest moments in the history of two nations. The start of a war which is still fresh in the mind.
We hate them. I cannot tell you with the words what do I feel against them. You have in England firms and clubs who hate each other, but I really don't think so that you have such example.
And there's certainly nothing in England like the memorial for the members of the firm that died fighting for Croatia. A memorial that shows the riot, which they believe was the real start of the war.
This is a statue for our brave lads who have been killed in the war for our freedom, for freedom of our country. This is everything for us. This is like a church, you know. Every time we pass here, we make a little pray for our guys. It's a very, very, very emotional part of the stadium for us.
It's very powerful.
Yes.
The bad blue boys weren't the only ones to die for their country. This is a memorial in Split, dedicated to the members of the Torcida, who made the ultimate sacrifice for Croatia. There were two sides to every story, and it was time to hear the other one. I was off to Serbia.
So I've been to Celtic Rangers. I've heard about Liverpool, Man United. You know, I know about the West Ham Millwall rivalries, you know, but that's nothing compared to this. You know, we're talking about, you know, these guys went to war with each other. Now, we're not talking about a tear up in the street for 2 minutes. You know, we're not talking about ambushing a pub. We're not talking about having it off for the old bill. You know, we're talking about these guys signed up, got given guns, went to the front line. You know? It's like England going to war with Scotland, like proper war. You know, it's really, really hard to get your nut round it.
I was travelling on a road which in the days of Yugoslavia was called the Road of Brotherhood and Unity. But at the time of the Civil War, there was little of that on this particular route. This was the road which you would travel on to get to the front line.
Caralho, moleque, é muito doido isso, né, mano?
And just off this road, 20 miles before reaching the Serbian border, we stopped at the town of Vukovar. In the pre-conflict days of former Yugoslavia,
na Sérvia e fizeram as asas da águia albanesa.
Como é que é? Eu não consegui ver a mensagem. Shaqiri e o Chaka são descendentes de albaneses e kosovos meteram gol na Sérvia, fizeram as asas da águia albanesa. Eu vi isso, foi recente até, mano. Deu uma polêmica do caralho, não foi? Foi até recente, não tem tanto tempo que aconteceu isso.
Foi recente isso.
Croats and Serbs lived here together peacefully. But the war changed all that, as Vukovar became a microcosm of the conflict, with civilians paying a huge cost.
absolute total devastation. Bullet
As
holes
marcas da
everywhere.
guerra estão lá, né?
I mean, they've rebuilt a lot of it, but it's still battered. It's still like mullered.
By the end, almost nothing was left.
Sad though, sad.
It's estimated that 2,000 of Vukovar's civilians were killed, 800 went missing, and 22,000 were forced into exile.
Just that element of death in the air and just, I dread to think what happened here, you know. Must have been horrendous.
I crossed the border into Serbia, heading to the capital of Belgrade. I'd heard some mind-blowing stuff so far, and that was only half the story. What, I wonder, will be waiting for me there?
Everywhere we go, we fight with something, or someone.
I like when they beat each other. I like when they beat police. I think that's life. That's football.
It's the same feeling like a sex with two girls. In Belgrade, no rules. It's no rules.
The first thing I noticed about Belgrade was how
É muito
different it was
distante da
from
minha
Split
percepção
and
de
Zagreb.
realidade, moleque, isso.
It felt more Eastern European and had echoes of the old communist regime. Serbia also uses a different alphabet from Croatia.
In Croatia, sort of work it out a little bit, you know what I mean? Here is Cyrillic. Get on that there, I don't know if you can see that over there. I ain't got a clue what it means, you know what I mean? Could mean anything, I mean, it's like alien writing.
Belgrade is home to the two biggest teams in Serbia, Partizan and Red Star.
Essa aí é sinistra a rivalidade também, tá?
Two
Sinistra.
clubs that are literally around the corner from each other. Partizan Belgrade's firm are called the Grobbery, which means grave diggers, whilst
Escoveiro.
Red Star Belgrade's firm is the Deliere, or the Heroes. Two firms who also went to fight in the war for their country, Serbia. It was the Deliere of Red Star who were involved in the infamous riot of 1990 that is believed to have started the war. I'd come here to meet them because, like the firms in Croatia, they too had gone from the terrace to the front line. Some of them were led by this man. This is Arkan, seen here leading the players off the pitch during the 1990 riot. At the time, he was officially Red Star Belgrade's head of security. He also controlled the Deliere. Petar Ilic used to be one of the Deliere and travelled with them all over Europe. He experienced the charisma of Arkan firsthand.
Actually, he was our leader in 1989. He had his crew among himself, and the guy adored him. He was very brave, and that's the things which, you know, you must count on a brave man on terrace.
Arkan was a proud Serb, and when the civil war began, he set up a paramilitary group known as the Tigers. The group was established under the auspices of the Serb-controlled Yugoslav government. The Tigers had been recruited by Arkan from the Deliere. After all, who better to enlist than hardcore Serbs with a history of violence?
Some like him very much. They choose to went to war with him. Those guys think that they are doing the right
É
thing for
muito ódio
Serbia,
acumulado, Deixe,
and
é muita
probably
coisa. É muita
that's
coisa,
why
cara.
they went to fight.
Tipo assim, é um cenário
I'd come to
completamente
Belgrade to
diferente da rivalidade de torcida aqui do Brasil, tá ligado? Tipo assim, porra, o flamenguista que odeia o vascaíno, o palmeirense que odeia o o corintiano e vice-versa, tá ligado? O colorado que odeia o gremista. Mano, é um cenário completamente diferente, mano. Tipo assim, teve guerra de fato entre os caras se odeiam, porra. É muito doido, o buraco é muito mais embaixo, tá ligado? É muito mais embaixo.
With the Delier, but they, it seemed, didn't want to meet me.
For the past 6 weeks, the production team have been trying to make contact with the current members of the Delier to hear their story. Problem is they won't talk to us. They've spoken to British journalists before in the past and they feel they've been dubbed as war criminals because of the association with Arkan.
Belgrade's other firm, though, were not as shy as their city rivals.
Armado, moleque. Botou na cara e foda-se, olha isso.
The grobbery, or grave-diggers of partisan Belgrade, were more than happy to welcome us and show us what they're like. 20-year-old Kimmy first stood with the grobbery when he was 14. Now he's about to stand trial for being involved in fighting at football. He's a member of a smaller group within the grobbery called Alcatraz.
We are Alcatraz. We are part of grobbery. We are the strongest group on South Tribune and probably on Balkan.
Every month, the grobbery family get together for a party. There's food, drink, drugs, and karaoke. But it's not all fun and games, because this lot are armed and dangerous.
When we have weapons, we fight with weapons. We haven't weapons, we fight with no weapons.
The grobbery are always up for it, especially when it comes to their neighbours, Red Star. There's always trouble, and today is Derby Day. It's Saturday, 1 p.m, and in the streets around Partizan's ground, fans are starting to arrive, although they may be slightly outnumbered by the police. Johnny is one of the top boys of Alcatraz, and he and the lads are ready and waiting.
I don't care about the game. We don't search for results. We have our game. That's most important than the football.
Eu não me importo com o jogo, não ligo para resultados. Nós temos o nosso próprio jogo. É muito doido isso, né, moleque? Tipo assim, foda-se o que acontece em campo. O bagulho é se matar mesmo.
Most important for us is Partizan. For us, football is life. We are fighting for the name Partizan and grobbery.
By kick-off time, the huge police presence has so far been successful in keeping the fans apart. But that's no guarantee that the game will pass off without a serious incident. At this ground in 1999, a shipping flare was fired from the grobbery end into the Delier, killing Red Star fan Alexander Radovic.
Caralho, moleque! Que isso, filho?
And in 2000, one of the most serious disturbances occurred at Red Star's ground, as hundreds of fans fought a pitched battle. In this riot, the grobbery attacked one of their own directors, hospitalising him, whilst the Delier attacked the Partizan coach, slashing his face with a knife.
Caralho!
But today, the game's passed off peacefully. In fact, there's not been much action at all. I had one last appointment in the former Yugoslavia. I was about to get up close and very personal with the grobbery. Yeah, that's right. The mob with the shooters. I was bang in the middle of their manor, and needless to say, well off mine.
I mean, this is the ghetto where I'm meeting them now.
Maluco, fica perto disso
It's like
aí.
their little betting shop. It's like a bar betting shop type place. Apparently they're all plotted outside. I think I can see them actually. Tell me a bit about, obviously,
Cara,
your relationship.
eu não sentaria num bar de esquina com esses malucos, mas nem fodendo, moleque. Tipo
Pra
assim,
ter
nem...
uma
Pra ter um
confusão,
ataque
dois
aí,
palitos.
tiroteio, é 2 palitos, mano.
Mas nem por muito dinheiro, filho.
Maluco.
Relationship with Red Star.
Every time when we see them, there is a fight. It is no need to be a football match, basketball match, or any other match against these two clubs.
So you go to watch basketball?
Football is a very, no quality.
Okay.
So the basketball, we were many times champions of the world.
Okay.
And, yeah, and it's a better atmosphere.
Vai ser mais fácil de brigar também, né?
So when it's not kicking off at the football, they go to basketball. Partizan and Red Star both have basketball teams. This is the derby from June 2006. Trouble started in the stands. The police stormed the Red Star fans section and several fans fell down a staircase.
Caralho!
More than 100 fans were injured.
How do you feel about the clubs from Croatia?
No, I don't know. They miss them. We missed them, especially our friend Žarko. We have a very strong erotic and sexual connection with them. Yeah.
This story they were about to tell me about one of their older guys, Jare, was both shocking and unbelievable.
Old guard.
Cara, eu tenho pra mim que ele vai contar um absurdo agora aqui, Aline. Um absurdo, assim. Que eu tenho até preocupação de ver.
É. Pode vir um...
Pode vir um
Desse
troço
rapaz
assim.
aí, não que ele tenha falado tantas coisas lúcidas, né?
Não, é um absurdo do começo ao fim, né? Pra galera entender.
É.
Mas assim, eu acho que agora vai vir um absurdo maior. Puta que pariu, moleque. Meu Jesus Cristo.
In the late 80s, one of the top boys at Torcida came to Belgrade as a guest at the grobbery.
After 4 drinks, he started to blabber. And,
But for shooting his mouth off, he had to pay a forfeit. They took him to the grave of a Partizan legend and demanded that he kiss it.
take him and he said, kiss
Pelo
him.
amor de Deus, cara, que porra é essa?
But when he refused, Jare
Pô,
raped
que
him.
isso, mano? Prende esse filho da puta, cara. Que é isso?
He really mean it.
Jesus
I'm not
Cristo,
easily
mano.
shocked, but I was now. These guys were prepared to commit the
Esse
ultimate act
caralho,
of humiliation and domination over their
Pelo amor
rivals.
de Deus, não
It
sabia
was
que
time
era
to
tão-
leave.
Meu Jesus.
When we come back, we'll hear what might happen if there's ever a case of firms reunited.
Esse documentário não ia pro ar hoje, né?
Não ia,
Esse maluco não ia estar sendo filmado hoje, tá ligado?
I think that it would be plenty of dead people.
So what does the future hold for Croatia and Serbia?
O Doc vai pro ar?
It's been almost 15 years since the end of the Civil War and the last significant footballing success of one of their clubs. The quality of football has deteriorated since the separation of the football leagues. Some have called for a unified league to increase competition and raise the standard of football to what it once was, but emotions still run higher. In the summer of 2003, Partizan Belgrade and Dinamo Zagreb met for a friendly in Switzerland that was anything but. Ironically, the Croatian parliament had passed a law the day before banning riots at sporting
Cai no
events.
chão aí é loucura.
And over 150 Croat and Serb fans were thrown out of a tennis match in Melbourne after a mass brawl occurred at the 2007 Australian Tennis Open. So what would happen if the Croat and Serb football teams started playing one another again?
We hate so much these bastards that I think that it would be plenty of dead people.
I honestly don't know what would happen on that day, but I'm sure that it would be a spectacle.
Milicija, vatrogasna kola, tušnjave,
Hrvati neka mole Boga da ne bude ta liga, jer dalje nismo povukli. It will be good, very good. More tension, more better football for sure, but fuck the football.
Yeah.
Mi smo spremni i dalje. Znači, oni sami ne kažu jesu za to ili nisu.
Most rival firms hate each other, but then most rival firms haven't been to war. The memories and experiences of that war are still fresh. It was only 15 years ago, so I can understand why feelings of hatred remain. These feelings have brutalized the firms, and I don't think there's much hope this hatred will ever die. The party's nearly over, and there's time for one last song, but it's not got a lot to do with football.
No próximo episódio, Hooligans, The Real Football Factories vai à Itália, terra dos ultras, que fazem belas festas nas arquibancadas, mas também espalham medo. Especialmente em jogos como Roma
aí
e
é
Lazio.
só rapaziada.
Deve ser ótimo.
Só rapaziada que faz caridade.
Tu acha que Vasco Flamengo é clássico? Cara, Vasco Flamengo é clássico, isso aí é doença, mulher. Tá ligado? O Vasco Flamengo é clássico, isso aí é doideira.
Isso aí é internação, gente. O cara fala que vai matar os outros porque torce pro time, cara. Conquista normal.
E vendo as Mavericks. Nossa, calma aí. O cara falou fuck the football. Pô, ele não tá se importando com o futebol, tá ligado? Muito doido, moleque. Vou te falar, cara, é uma percepção de realidade que a gente tem que é um choque total, tá ligado? Choque total, mano.